Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I'm your host, Maryann Petri, and there will be a retreat in Jacksonville, Florida called Standing Strong in Resilience, Paving the Way for Good Health and a Great Future. It's a parental alienation retreat taking place April 22nd through the 24th, and it will be at the Resolution Center of Jacksonville, Florida. And it will be a time of support and renewal for parents and grandparents on the journey of parental alienation. And I will have all the information in the podcast notes. I have a new guest on. His name is Jacques Ranger. He is an investigative reporter out of Montreal, Quebec. We are going to talk about a lot of things, including CPS. So I welcome you to the show. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Okay.
Fantastic.
So you also have a Facebook page called Canadian Court Watch.
Yeah, Canada Court Watch, and it's a group that I'm in. I'm in several groups, including Amnesty International and human rights types of area, in fact. And I've been doing this for as a hobby even, for 20, 21 years. I saw some things going on in the past, and I figured those were unacceptable. And I just wanted to help out, help people who are in need and who don't have the wherewithal to help themselves. But I had no idea that in doing this, I would be pegged as, someone who is anti-government, someone who is questions government, who criticizes government, who doesn't like the government. That's not true at all. In fact, I vote every election that we have. I go out and I vote because voting is important. If you don't vote, whoever, those corrupt people who want to get in will just call up their friends and say, hey, guess what? Nobody's voting. So just go and, do your Joe Henry vote and get the other 60 or 70 people to do so, whatever, and we'll get in. So you have to vote. You have to vote. You have to be heard. The old saying where, well, you know what, if you're going to be part of that, then you're responsible for it. That's ridiculous. You need to vote because that takes up votes from, those who are going to cause more hardships for people in the world. So you got to get them out.
Most definitely. When you started Canada Court Watch on Facebook, how long ago did you start that?
Well, I did. I'm not the founder. A Vern Beck from Ontario, province of Ontario in Canada, is in fact the founder. I'm assuming he's got it going now for, well, I've been involved for over 10 years, so it must be a good 20 years that he's been running this. And when I first got involved with them, it was simply a Facebook group, and we would go once a year down to Toronto, where they would have the opening of the courts. It's a big session. It's a big deal for Canada, because every court in Canada, in Ontario, would open up suddenly on this day, and it would be like a fancy thing. And we would go down there and we would challenge them with microphones and speakers and all kinds of stuff. We had it all set up. We would challenge them with Child Protective Service corruption. And we would tell them, hey, what's going on? People are not supposed to, anybody who goes to court and puts their hand on a Bible and says, I'm going to tell the truth, and a couple of seconds later starts lying like there's no tomorrow. That's called perjury. And I don't know about the States, but in Canada, when you perjure yourself in court, you are committing a criminal act. In the Criminal Code of Canada, there's an article there, I can't remember it offhand, but there's an article there that clearly says that when you're in a court of law, or anywhere actually, you could be in an office building somewhere and take an oath to tell the truth during questioning. Let's say it's discovery for a court case or whatever case, whatever the situation may be. And if you start lying, and if you knowingly lie in order to mislead the individual, or at the end of the process, the individual who will take the deciding person, usually a judge, could be a lawyer who's in an administrative position. But if you lie purposely to mislead that person, you are committing a criminal act. And it's beyond me how these social workers can continue doing what they're doing, knowing that they're committing criminal acts, and
Mhm.
they should be getting arrested. Even, in the end of the day, if the Justice Ministry steps in, whether it's provincial or federal, even if they step in and they stay the charges, who cares? The important thing is that they're lying
Mhm.
on the stand, most often to take a child away from a loving and caring parent.
Mhm.
They're lying. Some of the stuff I've heard and I've seen is just, it's
Oh,
unbelievable.
definitely. Are they actual licensed social workers or are they just inept caseworkers?
Some of them are licensed, very few.
Mhm.
But what they've done here in Quebec, Quebec is a province in Canada. What they've done here in Quebec is that they have the Order of Social Workers here. It's a little bit longer than that because they include all kinds of other people. It used to be simple before Order of Social Workers, and then they decided to complicate it in case the UN or anybody else, any international organization starts to come in and wants to, investigate what's going on here. So they complicate it with a big long name. But in general, it's the Order of Social Workers. And these people, believe it or not, they created in cahoots with the government. They created all kinds of different titles where you can have an acquired rights now. So
Mhm.
you could literally just get out of CEGEP, get out of high school, call it whatever, and you can run down to your local CPS office, and you can get hired by taking a couple-hour course, and suddenly you have the acquired rights to like diagnose a child in a situation, diagnose a parent in a situation, and put all these stupid things in a court report. And the judge at the youth courts here in Quebec will actually take these things into consideration. It's absolutely foolish. Before, they used to have to be social workers, accredited social workers.
Mhm.
And that was very, very good, because then the Order of Social Workers, at the end of the day, if these workers did something wrong, the order has the authority to investigate and
Mhm.
to condemn them and give them reprimands or whatever. But not being a social worker anymore, it's just a free for all, you
Mhm.
know. So yeah,
The
it's insane.
Right, they're just trampling on parents' rights on how to even raise their own children. They are out of control, even over here.
Yeah, it's more than out of control. Out of control, I think, would designate something, a small little situation that's, for whatever reason has gone past the threshold.
Mhm.
But when you literally walk into someone's home illegally and start accusing them of things that that they have not done, and the more confused they get and the more they try to answer your questions, then you start diagnosing them as having mental health disorders.
Mhm.
It's more, it's much more than being just out of control. um I would like to mention something while we're on the air here.
Mhm.
Recently, I think it was about a year and a half before this apocalypse with COVID,
Mhm.
we
Mhm.
had a big do here in Quebec, because there was I think it was a 5-year-old child who got murdered, killed. There's, I think some people have been charged. I'm not sure if they've ever been found guilty, because forever kids are getting killed in youth protection and
Mhm.
nothing is ever done.
Mhm.
Especially when it has to do with the parent, the not the the parents get charged right away, because the parents are the worst. If you're a biological parent and something happens to your kid, forget it, man. You'll be like Jesus Christ. They'll bring you to a cross somewhere at the top of a hill, and they'll nail you there, and you'll be tortured for weeks and months.
Mhm.
But if you're a foster parent, or if you're someone who's caring for that child with an agreement by the youth protection department, don't worry about it. You might feel uncomfortable for a couple of days, but no one's going to drag you to court. No one's going to do this. It's absolute. That's another thing I'd like to mention, is how the Child Protective Services absolutely uses taxpayers' hard-earned dollars, government money, to protect the foster parents and these people who are in the system, who are keeping the system afloat, no matter what they do. And I find that completely irreprehensible, because
Mm,
anyone and everyone in these systems of mass destruction, I call them SMDs,
mhm,
systems of mass destruction, anyone and everyone who supports these systems in a manner so as to make them worse, or make them unaccountable, or allow them to harm children at will, without answering questions in any way, shape, or form. Anyone who has any part of that, to me, is committing a crime against humanity,
mhm,
because children are vulnerable. Children don't have the wherewithal, to get the knowledge, the understanding, to know how to get out of their situations, to know what's best to do for them. You're a child. I mean, it's common sense.
mhm,
So anyone taking advantage of that, which Child Protective Services does in an unbelievable way, they manipulate kids. They'll repeat things to kids so the kids can repeat them, and knowing that the kids will be lying, because the Child Protective Service workers want the kids to go down that path. It's just, it's disgusting. You
mhm,
know, I'm just. I haven't talked about it in such a long time, because we're all trying to get through this
mhm,
apocalypse. And you know what? Just talking about it right now is like a nail piercing into my heart,
mhm,
because it really is happening, and children are really suffering. And it's just, you know, like I said, we had a big investigation there just before, a year and a half before the COVID, and we had a woman. Her name was Regine Laurent. The government appointed her to head a big commission, special commission, in terms regarding the Child Protective Services, because of the little child, I think they were 5 years old, from Granby, who died while on care. The government, you know, this guy, Francois Legault, who says so much and does just the opposite. This guy's unbelievable. But he stands up and he says, oh, well, this is unacceptable. We're going to have a commission of inquiry, and we're going to get all the bad things that are going on. We're going to learn about them all. They're all going to be exposed, and we're going to put an end to this.
mhm,
You know, when he said that, I kind of believed him. I kind of believed him, because I mean, nobody knew this guy. He's new in the CAQ, Coalition Aviner Quebec. They're a new party. They've been in power now for I don't know, 2-3 years, but nobody knew them before, so you have to give them benefit of the doubt. And as the commission went on, I watched it from a distance, and I started to see some weird things happening where, to me, the government were calling all kinds of entities that are government entities, um, you know, government legal aid offices. I mean, all kinds of people who were getting government grants were being called and asked to come and testify.
mhm,
But very little people who were victims of these of Child Protective Services were actually contacted. There were hardly no investigations done, and I did a test. I said to myself, because I was getting phone calls from people left and right telling me this is a farce, this is a cover-up. The government is, you know, using all these millions of dollars, and they're not investigating anything. They're just making it look like it's a perfectly balanced and productive system that's not perfect, but they're doing the best that they can. So I went down there. I contacted them. I got on the website. I said, okay. I pretended I had a story, you
mhm,
know, a story to tell, because that's what they said. If you have a story to tell, come and talk to. So I went down there in person one day, and first of all, they said, no, you have to come back, and I couldn't believe it, because they're supposed to be getting to the bottom of things. So
right.
yep. So then I was a little bit, I won't say persistent, but I didn't just leave and walk away. So they actually had to do something at that point, and they sent out two women, who are the women that people greet when you come there and you knock on the door and say, I want to be part of your inquiry. I would like to tell my story, because I think it's important. Okay. So the two women come out, and because of my experience in doing what I do for so long, sure enough, something doesn't add up to me.
Mhm,
One of them starts talking, and I'm like, wait a minute, she's talking just like a social worker. Like,
mm,
the way she's talking here is the same as the people, because I go to meetings all the time with people. I accompany families, children in this in these situations. So I see firsthand the actors that are involved, these social workers. And I said to myself, these are exactly like those people that I sit quietly in these offices with and listen to, and I'm totally appalled by. And so I let them talk. And all of a sudden, when they were finished talking, I looked at one, I said, excuse me, what is your name again? And she gave me her name. And I said, and where did you work? Like before, who do you work for?
Mm.
So, I work for the special commission, blah, 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 blah. I said, okay. And then I said, where did you work before?
Oh, no.
You're not going to believe. Child Protective Services. So she is actually both of those people who meet the individuals who are coming and who wanted to be part of the commission of inquiry to tell their stories. Both individuals, they were not investigators appointed by the government to get to the truth. They were not people who were taking notes and who were appalled by the things that the parents and the children were saying were going on in the system in order to fix it, like this famous François Legault, the Premier of Quebec, said he was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
These, in fact, individuals were there to block and to stop the truth from coming out at the inquiry. So I was freaked out when I saw that. I was totally like, what? Are you kidding me? The government has literally, Regine Laurent, the woman, the commissioner of the entire inquiry, has literally gone ahead and sought out all kinds of hundreds of people working for Child Protective Services to come and work at her commission of inquiry in order to stifle people's voices, in order to stifle the truth from getting out. I was amazed. And I talked to them and I told them some outrageous stuff, like that the Child Protective Services here can actually go into their data bank. They have a data bank called PIGE, and it's the place where they put all the notes that they meet with the parents on a day. They'll, at this day, this time, met with parents, and all their observations. And I'd like to say what the parents say, but they put whatever they want.
Right.
But they're supposed to indicate what the parents said during the meeting, and it's all listed there.
Mm-hmm.
And later on down the road, because there's so much corruption involved and so many lying and so many misleading and wrongful things that they write in this PIGE system in order to get their agenda reached at the end of the tunnel. But whenever they get caught, and whenever shit hits the fan, if I can use that word online,
Definitely,
and it gets hot, they can go right into that PIGE system and alter and modify their progress notes, alter and modify the records. Now, what that means is you could be walking down the street here in Quebec, minding your own business, and all of a sudden, 3 cop cars pull up beside you. Cops jump out, guns out, freeze, don't move. You get arrested. You're charged with a murder. Listen to this. This is crazy. You're charged with a murder. So, you're locked up. You're tied up like a sausage someplace in some detention center. And then you start to learn that after your initial meeting with your lawyer, whatever, and where you show them clearly, hey, I don't know what you're talking about. I was in another country. This is not me. And you have like hundreds and 200s of it. It doesn't matter, because they can go into those records and change everything and make it look like, yes, this person was involved in this, did do this, and therefore we got our man. And it's like they'll pick you prior to anything happening and they make the case as they go along. And Child Protective Services does exactly that. There most often than not is no case in the beginning, and they make it as they go along, so that in the end, and it's their actions that cause a reaction, and they use those reactions to make all kinds of wicked insinuations against parents. And oh my God, it's unbelievable. Now, I just want to finish off on the special commission that I was talking about very quickly. As I told you, the frontline workers were there to cover up and to stop important information from getting into the hands of the commission, let alone being heard by the commissioner, so that it can stop. I told these people straight to their face, hey, what's going on? There's individuals who are working at Child Protective Services agencies, and this is probably being done by the government, who literally go into their data bank and can erase, modify, and alter information at will. And that is absolutely absurd. It's completely illegal. It's more than illegal. It's outrageous. And these people, eh, you know, being involved in these situations, I thought they would call me and,
Mhm.
have me heard and have me present information to prove and to show what I'm talking. No, 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 nothing. And you know what happened in the end? I don't know if there's anybody watching us or who will be watching us, but I hope they're sitting down, because in the end, and this was the first in Quebec, in the end, you remember that I spoke about the Order of Social Workers of Quebec.
Mhm.
Now, this entity is responsible for all the social workers and all those other workers who are wannabe social workers but have special rights, because they don't want them to be accountable as social workers, so they give them another title, some weird title, special this or special that. Okay. These people, the Order of Social Workers of Quebec, are the entity that, if they wanted to, they could crack down on all this crap and they could end it overnight. Because if you didn't listen, your ass would be grass, and they would kick these social workers out. They would kick these people out, and they wouldn't have anything to do with children, which in certain situations would be a fantastic thing.
Mhm.
So, for the first time in the history of this province, and even in the history of Canada, because Regine Laurent conducted the inquiry the way she did, and she allowed the commissioners who were on the panel, even the people who went and gave testimony and had testimony against CPS and had testimony showing what CPS does and how it's corrupt, illegal, crimes against humanity, even those people were allowed to be attacked by the commissioners during the commission. Instead of them being there and listening to the evidence and saying, thank you very much for coming, they would literally put down and attack and ridicule, lawyers. Even I've seen lawyers testify and get attacked by these people right there at the inquiry. I mean, that's unacceptable. That's
Mhm.
completely foolish. But because she did such a good job at covering the entire situation up, and there was never any investigation against any social workers or anyone whatsoever, the Order of Social Workers of Quebec, the Order of Social Workers of Quebec gave an outstanding award for the first time in the history of Canada, gave some big, flashy award to Regine Laurent for the way she conducted the inquiry. Now, in life, you see things happen, and sometimes you say, well, that's borderline ridiculous. That's a borderline conflict of interest. But when you see an entity who was targeted to be investigated because of what the workers of that, they all over Quebec are doing in certain situations, and because they've been like let off the hook, not even questioned. And when you see that agency, Order of Social Workers of Quebec, actually give a fantastic award of whatever it is, prestige, or to that commissioner who held the inquiry, you know, you know
Mhm.
that there is something very, very, very bad going on. So I just wanted to touch base with that, because as long as the government of Quebec continues to ignore the problem, as long as the government of Quebec continues to um, how can I support these kinds of things from carrying on, um, the system will never get better. And it's almost as if they don't want it to get better because it's a money making machine. There's, you know, there are grants and from federal, provincial, you name it. The money's rolling from anywhere and everywhere. And as soon as you're apparently in front of a judge and the judge puts his gavel down and says, "This child appears to be in danger," that second, multiple hundreds of thousands, almost who knows, there's no limit actually, but the dollars start to move instantly. And there's only two groups of people who never see that money. And that's the children
Mhm.
who the government has just declared are in danger, and their biological parents who apparently need some kind of assistance. They never see the money.
Mhm.
It's the money is
Yeah.
the money changes hands to all the corrupt individuals in the industry, in these scams. But the very people who need the cash in order to make their lives better, they don't see a penny. It's outrageous.
It seems like this is a global problem. This is just it's going on everywhere throughout the whole world.
That statement, when I hear that statement online, the hair comes up on my back. I don't have hair on my back, but I'm just saying, it it bothers me because yes, I would agree that child protective services is an industry that is worldwide as we speak, but there are some countries who do not have it. I don't believe Russia has child protective services, for one. I'm not trying to say that, I don't know anything about Russia, whether it's good or bad place. You hear so much negative that,
Mhm.
One would tend, at least over here in North America, we tend to say, well, Russia's bad, but in fact, they don't have child protective service. There are countries in the world who do not have that and will not have that for good reasons, because um, the biological parent is the most important connection to any fetus, to any baby, to any child that grows up thereafter, because there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of um, how could I say, not investigations, but um, studies that have been done that shows the bond between the biological maternal and paternal parents of a child, maternal being the mother, maternity and all that, and paternal being the dad, because he's paternally connected to the child through the male part of it. Um, there have been so many studies that have spoken about this repeatedly, how important it is for every child to have contact with the maternal and paternal sides of their creation.
Mhm.
And once you try to stop that, the disconnection of those two individuals in a child's life should only be done in very, very, very serious circumstances,
Mhm.
very serious circumstances. And one of them, to me, would be if and when there is a problem in a child's life, and if and when the mother or the father are responsible, because that's not always the case, and if and when said parent refuses to identify with the possible reasoning behind their responsibility in the negative interaction with the child and the consequences on the child thereafter. And lastly, if and when they don't want to take part in any kind of an intervention in order to change that behavior, so that the child would thereafter be free of this type of negativity. Just a very basic word, but there's all kinds of examples. Yeah, only in those circumstances. Here in Quebec, there's been a lot of talk, and the government has gone ahead and literally taken away the rights of the biological parents to children now, and they've made a law. It seems that they've made a law. It's all been done in French, and I haven't been following it up too much, but I've been reading a bit here and there in French, and it seems they've made a law where they're now saying that the minute a child is born, blah blah blah, whatever, it's the state is the parents of the child.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
I swear to God, like, you know, this might be unrelated, Maryann. This might be unrelated, but I watched something yesterday that horrified me. And it brings me to think back, I don't know how many years. Well, I guess it was during the special commission when I heard these things. But the government of Quebec was literally using children, 5, 6, 7 year old. When you hear a child's voice
Mhm.
speaking, and you can tell that they don't have those other words, and they're using those limited words to express. It's kind of cute. It's
Mhm.
it's cute. I mean, you hear it and you know what I'm talking about, and you say, well, wow, that was kind of cute. But the government of Quebec was using children, and I think they still are. I don't know if it stopped, but they were using children on commercials. If you're in a family, and you're being beaten, or if you have it hard, or things are going on that you don't agree with, call Child Protective Services. They were using kids in these commercial, and if you call the 1-800 number, the recording would be a kid. And
That's
it was,
sick.
that's sick. You know what? That is absolutely sickening. There's no justifying of that. A child is a child, and a child doesn't have the wherewithal, again, to understand any of these situations, and to use a child in that way, that is child abuse in
Mhm.
itself. So while the government says that they want to get down to the nitty gritty and find out, how children are being abused and stop it, whether it's the systemic or from the biological family or whatever, and they want to end it, but they're doing it themselves to the children. Now, the reason I brought this up is because yesterday or the day before, last couple of days, there was a TV show here in Quebec. I wish I could remember the name, because I'd be more than happy to put this out to the entire world, the name of this show. But there was a TV show here in Quebec. You're not going to believe this, but Francois Legault, our great leader here in Quebec, was on the show as a big hero. And during the show, they had a little 5 or 6-year-old boy come on, and they were asking the little boy, son, what should we do? What would you do if you saw people who were unvaccinated, who did not get the vaccine for COVID? And you know what the little boy was programmed to say? I'd call the police. Like,
Oh no.
like this, you know what? This imbecile, the premier of Quebec, was party to a scheme where a child was being taught, a young child was being taught to squeal on, or to have authority over adults around him, and to do something and to hate them, to be afraid of them, to fear them if they were, quote, unvaccinated.
Mm.
Who does that? Who in this entire world? I'm surprised this guy's not in handcuffs. Like, it's outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently everybody in the audience of this TV show clapped when the little boy said, I'd call the police, or however he said. Like, please, how can that be?
Well, that's emotional child abuse, what they put this kid through who doesn't know that. And they're also creating a narcissist with this child.
Exactly. But that's the government. That's not just the government. That's the government leader. His name is Francois Legault. And I got to tell you, I had no judgment against this man or about this man prior. I've seen some stupid situations, but everybody has their off days.
Mm-hmm.
So I try not to, be, critical. But when I saw this, and when I read this and I saw what happened, there is no excuse.
Mm-mm.
There is absolutely no excuse. This guy's got his head so far up Justin Trudeau's behind. It's just insane. We have a prime minister here in Canada who is going on national TV and saying, get those unvaccinated people. Do it. You got to stop them. They are endangering our lives. Who does that?
Mm-mm.
There are studies. We don't even know that what happens with this vaccine. I mean, it's common knowledge throughout the world. The tests have not been done. Enough tests have not been done. There are so many. I can't remember the country, but I read last night and I saw a video where police were served with an injunction by a court in a certain country because the police were actually vaccinating people, or doing whatever it was they were doing to facilitate vaccinations. And because of all the deaths, because of all the secondary effects of those vaccinations, a court intervened and stopped them through a court order.
It just rings back to 1945 and Adolf Hitler.
It's crazy. I'm telling you, it's very, very sad. Maybe I will mention this. A year and a half ago, well, when COVID started, I forget what the reasoning was. I think it was I had to pick something up. But I was at a McGill University installation. here in Montreal. There's libraries. I mean, they have a big network, and the public, of course, is allowed to be there. And I only walked through. I believe it was a very cold winter day. And I went from one end and I said, oh boy, I'm going to take advantage of this. I'm not walking out in this biting cold. I'm going to walk through this, and I did. And you know what's really weird? I was shocked. This is McGill University in Montreal, Quebec, and this is positive. What I'm going to talk about here, I'm not putting them down. What I'm going to say is it shocked me. As I walked down the long corridor, because I was going from point A to point B, I looked, I noticed. Now, everywhere else in Montreal, there was COVID this, COVID that, blah, 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 beware, blah. Everywhere. It was everywhere. And as I walked down the corridor of this McGill University installation, I glanced at the wall because, sometimes you see not crap, but sometimes you see stuff on posters and it's really neat because, oh, wow, that's going to happen. Okay. Date and time, take a note. And I'm going to be part of that. If it's social justice, whatever, it's fun. But I noticed on the wall a big sign, and there were several of them, from point A to point B. And I didn't see the word COVID anywhere on that sign. But what I saw was this: please remember to wash your hands. And if you have any flu-like symptoms, to do this, that, and the other thing. They were simply talking about flu-like symptoms and informing the public in that immediate area, whoever would see the signs, to take precautions. And those precautions were positive, and they were exactly right. But I swear to God, it's like somebody grabbed me and shot me on my butt and then woke me up, because I saw on those, there was nothing about COVID. There was no fear instilled or projected to anyone for anything. Common sense, very, very, very intelligent. And that's what really kind of snapped me out of everything and gave me some hope. And I said, wait a second, this is exactly true. This is a flu type situation. It's very transmittable, apparently. Look, I'm not a doctor. I don't want to pretend to be. But when I saw those signs at the McGill University, I was like, it's like somebody had taken me and invisibly grabbed me and hugged me and said, don't worry, things are going to be okay. Whereas if you were looking at the government signs and every other institution that's, following government, you would be scared to go out. I've spoken to kids. My son has friends, and I've spoken to kids, and, they're saying, I'm staying in. I'm not going out. Even if it's Christmas, even if it's New Year's, I'm staying in the house. And I feel horrible when I hear that, because people need fresh air. That's what you need. You need to breathe. 90% of the people who get healed in hospitals, when you walk in, even if you're hospitalized, it's pushed fresh oxygen. That it's forced oxygen that's going through your body, and it heals the COVID inside of you because it's air. And when you see people outside, I'm looking this way because that's my window. When you see people outside walking down the street, nobody's anywhere near them for 500 meters either way, and they have masks on. And I'm like, sometimes if I have extra time, which is not often, but sometimes I will engage a conversation with them, and I will try to tell them, explain to them, you do have an immune system, and your body does need oxygen to operate. So if you cut water, oxygen, food, I guess you don't need food to survive. You can always survive forever on water, apparently. But I'm trying to explain to them that if you cut your oxygen level, it's not going to have a positive effect on your body. So, yeah. So, I mean, I just wanted to throw that out there, that people have been so scared, have been sent in such a panic, so much fear. It's absolutely, there are, since the beginning, I don't know why, how we got the COVID, but anyway, since the beginning, the only thing we haven't gotten as a public is information. Right from the start. Everybody governments were holding information. And here in Quebec, they're trying to say that, we had hundreds and hundreds of old people that died in nursing homes because they didn't take any precautions. The government didn't do anything. They waited until the COVID got into the nursing home, and then they said, "Oh my God, we got to do something." By then, 95% of the nursing home were dead.
Mhm.
And then they said, "Well, we didn't do anything. We didn't know." I have to say that's bullshit,
Mhm.
because ever since Wuhan, all the indicators that were happening back then and spread quickly through the world, but there was information coming out of where the COVID originally started and the other places it did. It wasn't here overnight.
Mhm.
Trudeau never closed the borders. He kept the planes coming in from hotspots all over the world for almost a year. And now he's on national TV saying, "Get those unvaccinated people. If you're vaccinated, you have the right to get that unvaccinated." Bro, tell the truth.
Mhm.
You did so much to cause absolute grief Canada-wide. People have died all over Canada, and it's because of your negligence and your incompetence. Don't come out as the hero today
Mhm.
and try to blame it on the unvaccinated. Oh my God.
Mhm.
It's crazy. Anyway.
Well, it's kind of like CPS that's a day late and a dollar short.
Yeah, a couple of dollars short. It's
Yeah.
crazy. And it's really too bad, because it's not like they're lacking resources. I mean, these people have tons of, look at the cars they drive. Look at the
Mhm.
vacations they take. Look, I mean, it's absolute. I've seen situations where I'm accompanying people, and as soon as they get the kid, when I get the kid means as soon as they convince a judge that the child is in danger, some imaginary danger, in a lot of cases it's imaginary, but they convince the judge by lying. And as soon as that happens, you don't see the worker for like 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And what does that mean? That means the worker got a paid vacation for 2 weeks and is not on job, is who knows where, because they got the kid in the system and they did their job. Now they have the benefits.
Yeah, this is just it's appalling. I just wish they would just go away.
Well, I used to think that. I honestly used to think that, because when you see the effects on children
Mhm.
of um, of these systems of mass destruction, SMD, when you see the effects on children directly, yeah, there were many times when I just wished, go pick on somebody else, man. Like, you know what,
Mhm.
leave this family alone. And but I have to, I'm a logical person. So I have to be, logical, and I have to be, have to stay in reality. There are some bad parents
Mhm.
in the world. Not every parent is a good or great, and even if you're not a great parent, who cares? As long as you don't consistently and repeatedly abuse and hurt your child.
Mhm.
Sometimes, within a family dynamic, there's going to be fighting, there's going to be arguing.
Mhm.
A parent might see a kid do something for the same time, after 10 times, and say, "What the hell?"
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. The parent yelled at the kid. Yeah, okay. The kid was like, got upset because the parent yelled at them. But you know what? These are isolated incidents. And in a family dynamic, these things, when they occur, actually help the child to become an adult that they become one day, and puts them in a proper frame of mind, so as to be responsible and
Mhm.
to carry their load in life. But there are other situations, if a child is beaten, repeatedly. I'm not just talking a smack on the butt. I'm talking like, hurt. Like,
Mhm.
you could tell when a parent is not, something's wrong, something's off. We need child protective services
Mhm.
in those situations, but they are far and very few.
Mhm.
One thing I'd like to say though is that, and this talks a bit, goes towards what you just said. I just wish they would disappear. I kind of understand where you're coming from, because you know what? A parent or a family that has a small problem, and Child Protective Services gets involved, that small problem that could have been dealt with through community resources. There's all kinds of ways that the problem or the situation could have been rectified very quickly and very easily. But the minute Child Protective Services gets involved, they cut off all the resources in the community to that family. They say, okay, we're involved now. You're out, you're out, you're out, you're out, you're out. Suddenly the family has no resources. All those people that were working with them in the past to help them and keep them solidified and, a good family, productive and well organized and, just going on, surviving, they're gone. And Child Protective Services then sits back and just waits. The family's freaking out because they had all these resources in the past that they were functioning well with. And all of a sudden, no one's doing anything anymore because they were told to stand down because CPS is involved. And CPS just waits for something to happen, for something to explode. And even before something happens, parents are smart. They'll call the worker and say, hey, this is my situation. Yeah, okay, I'm going to check into that and I'll get back to you. They don't. They don't get back to them, or they get back to them and they talk about something else and distract the parent and lead the parent into a different direction, but don't deal with the original reason why the parent called them. So in general, I just want to say that when CPS gets involved, they literally waste taxpayer dollars to make the situations much more complicated and much, much more worse, because then they can justify being involved. It's pitiful. And François Legault, the Premier of Quebec, had a wonderful opportunity several years ago to put an end to this, to actually stop it and to help children and make things better. Mm-hmm. And he completely screwed it up. He knowingly completely screwed it up. Mm-hmm. I don't know even how this guy can look himself in the mirror in the morning, because it's unbelievable. And he went on TV saying, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We know there's a problem. It's clear. It's obvious. So we're going to have this inquiry and we're going to find out what all the little problems are, and we're going to get rid of them. We're going to deal with them once and for all. What a hypocrite. Mm-hmm. He never did such a thing at all. He hired a woman whose job it was to stifle everyone and anyone who came forward and was trying to tell the government what was going on. And that, to me, that and those are crimes against humanity, because these are not just affecting one or two people. This affects the whole province, every child and every family in this province. And for him to have done that, knowingly done that, to save face for Quebec in front of the entire world, but yet ignored the ongoing systemic, serious problems of this institution, is completely unacceptable. Completely unacceptable.
I agree with you. This is,
I'm starting to see I talk a lot.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. Because we all need to know what's going on everywhere. I mean, this is a problem everywhere. And I was going to ask you, if someone wants to contact you, how can they reach you?
Through you, maybe.
Okay.
I know. You know what? Yeah, I am finding, this is kind of weird, but I'm involved in exposing CPS worldwide. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason I say that is because there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in Australia, for example. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And of course, I'm vocal. I'm on some of the sites, some of the Facebook sites mm-hmm. all over the world. And you can tell when someone makes a posting on a Facebook group, and the way it's worded, it's you can tell sometimes that it's a CPS worker. It's not really an individual. It's a CPS worker making that post, and they're trying to sound as if they're a parent in need, but the words that they're using is criminalizing parents. They're wording it in such a way where they pretend to be a friend of biological parents, and they're not sure what's going on with CPS anymore, but yet they say things like, well, I've abused drugs for like several months now, and whatever, stupid comments mm-hmm. where this is not a biological parent asking for help. This mm-hmm. is some yo-yo, mm-hmm. a CPS worker who is putting this posting here to dirty the image and credibility of biological parents everywhere. And yeah, so I expose them. I ask questions and I get them to, show the whole group. So
Mhm.
to make a long story short, these agencies don't really like me,
Mhm.
basically because I I protect children. If a child comes to me, and it's happened several times, a child has come to me through the grapevine, whether it be their parents or school or whatever, and they tell me, this is going on. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to ignore that. I'm not going to call CPS, that's for sure, but I will involve, I'll try to get a network of support for the family as quickly as possible. And sometimes it's as simple as just sitting down and talking with the mom or the dad,
Mhm.
because, sometimes people haven't been where you've been, they haven't gone where you've gone. And just talking to someone,
Mhm.
I've been walking down the street sometimes and I laugh because kids are amazing.
Mhm.
I've been walking down the street sometimes, quiet, minding my own business, going from point A to point B, and I run into a kid having a serious meltdown, man. And the
Mhm.
parents, the poor parents, you look at their faces and oh, this poor parent. If I'm sure right now they're wishing they were never even born, because
Right.
this is just crazy. And but that's why I say kids are tremendous. Kids are fantastic because kids have the ability to completely upseat the parent at any given time, any given place. Anyway, so I'm walking down the street sometimes and I see a parent and a kid, and there's a conflict, and that parent has to be in a very important meeting in a couple of seconds, and they're like, oh my god, they're freaking out, and the kid is escalating and escalating and escalating. And there's been times where I have inserted myself in these situations. Something so simple as taking a piece of paper out of my pocket, or seeing something and pointing to it and saying, is that a purple sign over there? And you know why I do that? To distract the child.
Mhm.
And once the child is distracted, they don't escalate anymore.
Mhm.
And they're in a new world, they're in a new place. But the poor parent couldn't even, you can't think of that when you're in that kind of a situation, because you're like, you're pulling your hair out. So I just wanted to say, sometimes it's just by talking
Mhm.
to someone that you can induce positive, and you can diffuse a situation. I've had many parents look at me with tears in their eyes saying thank you and just walking away.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that I'm a good person for doing this. I'm not trying to take credit here. But what I am saying is that kids are fantastic.
Mhm.
Kids are wonderful. But it takes an entire society, an entire village to raise a child.
Mhm.
So sometimes it's nice to give some input at the right time, at the right place, in order to soothe a situation and help the parent, get over it. Because
Mhm.
it's just because things happen doesn't mean a parent is a bad parent. I mean, you remember back in the day, I don't know how many kids were in your family, but we only had three children, and my mom and my dad. So there was five of us at the most. Um, I don't know if you don't, I mean, I know that back in the day, like way before me, it wasn't unheard of to have like 10, 12 kids in a family, man.
Mhm.
So you got to understand that in that family dynamic, there are going to be problems.
Mhm.
And imagine if CPS was to, single out every problem and take all those kids, and 11 kids in the system and one left at home. I mean, that's insane.
Mhm.
But those 12 children living amongst each other for who knows how many years, and everyone watching the other one in their experiences, and then that experience is passed down, and the younger kids get the best of it, or the middle kids perhaps get the best of everything because they see the whole dynamics. These children grow up to be very, very, very strong adults,
Mhm.
not because they were like never yelled at or never told to pick up their toys, but because they were in that family dynamic where they were exposed to all kinds of stuff, and
Mhm.
and it's a positive thing. It's a good thing. It's a great
Mhm.
thing.
Um, well, can people reach you on your Facebook site,
Yeah,
Canada
absolutely.
Court Watch?
People can reach me on Facebook. You can look for Jean-Jacques, which is Jean, and then Jacques, and then John, John, and Ranger, Ranger. You can reach out to me there. I will definitely get back to you. don't ignore any messages. I get back to everyone. Some of them are overwhelming, of people who have been suffering for years and years and years. And I got to tell you, when I see people on groups telling these people to just get over it,
Mm,
nothing pisses me off more than someone saying, look,
right.
get on with your life, forget about your kid, you'll
Mm,
have a better things will be better for you tomorrow. That is a crock. That is
mhm,
nothing but a crock, because you know what, these people are hurting, and no matter how long it's been since they haven't seen their child, same as me walking down the street and seeing that kid having a meltdown and seeing the parents ready for the insane asylum, picked up by the men and put in a straitjacket. That's how bad some of these situations were. And it's the same thing. Parents who haven't seen their kids in years, there could be something that could be done to initiate that child, to distract that child from the pattern of perhaps a parental alienation that the other parent has been, directing towards that child for who knows how many years. But there are ways to induce change in any
mhm,
situation. And I strongly believe that time heals, number one. It's sad to say that, but time does heal. And any situation is possible to be corrected, no matter where the situation at is or what it's at. So you know what? Don't forget about your kids.
mhm.
Don't listen to that crap. Love your children. If you can, let them know without breaking a court order. Go ahead and do so. There are many, many, many ways. Sometimes we don't think of them because we're when you're not in the situation, it's so easy to have a solution. But when you're the one in that situation, you're like, oh, what am I gonna do? And
Mhm.
it's like mission impossible. But there's always, where there's a will, there's a way. And I just don't like when I hear people, get on with your life. It'll be a better tomorrow and you have to let go.
Yeah,
Bullshit. You don't have to
that's right.
let go. That's your flesh and blood, man.
Right. That's
These
the worst
are
thing you
your,
can say.
yeah. Of and these are
Aw,
specialists. These are like specialists who say this, like, whoa.
yeah, that's scary. Well, I'm glad I had you come on the show. Don't jump off, okay?
Okay.
Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in the family courtrooms. I'm your host, Maryann Petri, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us again for another exciting episode. Thank you again, John.
Thank you